Colin.
Oh. Hold on. My notebook.
Stone tablets that were given to him at the burning bush last night.
I wish I was at the burning bush. I'd have a thing or two to say. So I'm going to go through the games. So basically what happened is I went through my trophies and then I wrote down all the games that I thought could be on the list. And I identified 5 games that didn't make the list for a specific reason, and then another 7 games, I think, that didn't make the list for a different reason. I'll just go over those really quickly before we get into the list. Hitman, the core Hitman game, I just started. I'm going to spend more time with it after break. It's important to note that this is an incomplete list because I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks playing games I didn't play, so it could be that this list frankly isn't even valid by the time you hear it, but I think this is probably going to be the essence of it. But Hitman, I just didn't spend enough time with, and I don't know that would make the list anyway, but I like it. Rise of the Tomb Raider, I think, could easily make the list. I just have not spent a lot of time with it yet, and that's a game I'm definitely going to play over the break. Foul Play, I absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite Vita experiences, but it came out last year. Salt and Sanctuary, I'm waiting for the Vita version. I played it a little bit on PS4, so I think it's a game that speaks to me. I actually really liked what I played, but again, just not yet. And Far Cry Primal, I think, probably could have been on the list too, but I didn't play enough of it. So I wanted to talk about that, but I think those games are good. Games that otherwise didn't make it for different reasons. Brutal, I really liked. Brutal is a dungeon crawling action game in an ASCII world. Really cool and really stylish game, and I think underplayed and underappreciated. I think it was really fun. And I spent a solid week with it, and that was enough. But I played it every night, and it's basically about how far you can get before you die. And it was pretty cool. Overcooked is an honorable mention. I think it's a fun game. I thought it probably would make the list, but when I made my list, there's no way Overcooked's anywhere near it. But it's a great game. I wouldn't deny it. I think it's a really, really great game. Hitman Go is really fun. I'm almost done with it on Vita. I have a few stages left. Was playing it last night. Great game. Again, not good enough to be on the list. Batman from Telltale is an honorable mention. I think even without its technical issues, it wouldn't make the list because I think the list is so strong for my tastes that I came up with. But certainly worth people giving it a look. Job Simulator. I thought would have been on the list, and I tried to sneak on the list, but I can't. There's no VR games on my list actually. I think that's the strongest PSVR game so far, and the best-selling PSVR game I think since it's come out. Headlander, I thought would definitely be on the list. This is a Double Fine game, and I thought it was really, really clever. It's a Metroidvania game where you're basically a head only, and you're going on different people's bodies and walking around and using that as a way to get through the map. And I think it's really fun. And The Division is my final shout out. I played The Division for about 40 hours, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I played it by myself, so I didn't get the normal experience that folks would get with it. So I put those on there, and I'll note that, similar to echo Tim's comments, this was a way stronger year than I thought it was, and a way stronger year than I think people are giving it credit for. I played, according to PSN Profile so far this year, 69 games on PS4 and Vita, and you probably add another half dozen or so on from Civilization 6, for instance, and those games that Gears of War 4 games that I didn't play on our native platforms. So 75 games is a lot to choose from, and I was actually shocked by how much I played this year. Last year I played less than I would have liked to because of personal problems and the business kind of taking off and all that kind of stuff. This year I played way more games than I intended to play or that I thought I would play. It's an excessive amount of games, actually. So this is the list now, and it's in alphabetical order. Not in the order that I think
I like us.
Not in the order that I think they should necessarily be. Battlefield 1 was the first game on the list. It's a special shooter. I think that I think its strength is in its storytelling and its vignette style. I know that this was a redemption story for DICE in a way, and I know this was a redemption story for fans of the series after how bad Battlefield 4 was for a lot of people, and that isn't really relevant to me. What's relevant to me is they took World War I and they made it super interesting, and it was actually a conflict that a lot of people and a lot of designers and a lot of publishers and developers have shied away from because it's difficult to tell a story, and they managed to do it. Now, it's a little unbelievable. It's not quite right, but it's right enough, and it feels authentic, and I liked that I cared about these characters and I cared about their stories, and it was just enough time, 2, 3, 3.5. I was playing on hard, so it took me a little longer because I'm dying a lot, maybe 4 hours with each story, something like that. But I thought it was plenty of time, and I really liked them, and I liked that one was all about a tank, and one was all about a plane, and one was all about infantry, and I think it was really neat. The only miss, I think, was that the Harlem Hellfighter that was so prominently displayed in the promotional materials and on the box cover is basically only in the tutorial, and I really would have liked to see his story. In a more in-depth way. I'll also say that I went online for a few days with the game, played it for maybe 10 hours online, and maybe not even, and loved it. And I thought it was great. The scale of the game and not only the metagame of the multiplayer, which is really cool, but the scale of what is going on in this map is just it's fucking insane. And I really like that element of it as well.
And the war pigeons.
And the War Pigeons were there as well. Number 2 is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I will say it again. I've said it many times and I'll stick by it. People hate on Call of Duty because it's cool to do that. This game is fucking awesome. And I understand that when we talk about Call of Duty, we're talking about two different things. And so that's important to note that I don't play it online. And I have no interest in playing it online. And I know some people take issue with Infinite Warfare's trajectory in terms of its looseness online. The parkour has kind of ruined it for some people. I understand all that. I don't care. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the campaign. This is an amazing Call of Duty campaign, and I've played almost all of them. So it's what I will say about the campaign is that it has vibes of Mass Effect. Some, I think, a facade of nonlinearity. It's not really nonlinear, but you go to like a world, like a map, like a solar system map, just like you would in Mass Effect, and you pick a planet or a place you want to go. The guys are over on Venus, you can't land on Venus, but they're over at Venus. There's a derelict ship there. They're trying to mine it, go and fuck them up, right? Like you don't have to do that, but you can, and you do, and I liked the role playing kind of mechanics of upgrading your character and upgrading gear and having kind of some options in that way. I also thought the story was really great, and well, I was a little underwhelmed by maybe the antagonist, who is the dude from Jon Snow from Jin Snow from Game of Thrones. I thought that the story was cool. It's basically about a separatist faction of humans that have never really lived on Earth. Like, we're so spaceborne now that we have permanent Martian colonies on Titan and Mercury and all these other places, and they just fucking hate Earth. And they hate the humans, and they hate being told what to do from this place. And it's got like kind of colonial vibes, and I think the story's really clever, and it's not a huge surprise because people from Naughty Dog wrote the story. So I think Call of Duty Infinite Warfare deserves way more credit than it's getting, and I think that Call of Duty yet again is the archetype for how shooters should feel. If you make a shooter, it should feel like Call of Duty, and I think there's no shame in saying that, and clearly the market agrees. Doom is number 3. Doom is the only game on my list that I didn't beat. I got distracted, but I spent an inordinate amount of time with Doom, and I will get back to it over the break. I just got distracted. I was basically very procedurally going through every map, getting every collectible, every item, every upgrade, doing all the challenges and all that kind of stuff, and I just got distracted by something else, maybe E3 or something. I don't know. I don't really remember even when it came out. But it's so fun. It's so arcadey. It's so fast. It's one of those games where I typically like to play my shooters on a harder difficulty level, and I remember trying to play it on like very hard and then hard, and I'm like, fuck this. Like, it's just so gruelingly difficult that I'm like, I don't have the patience for this. I just want to get through it, so I'm playing it on normal. There was a lot of skepticism with this game, not only because of the fact that Bethesda, which published it, because they own id, not only because they didn't give review copies, but also I think skepticism because of Doom 4, what was once known as Doom 4, it's tortured development, and there was every reason to be skeptical and to think that this game was going to pan out, and it panned out, I think, better than anyone could have possibly imagined. And one of the major things that I think is important to note about Doom in particular is that everyone's like, well, it doesn't have a story, and I'm like, I profoundly disagree with that. I profoundly disagree with that assertion. The stories in the environment and the stories are in the intel and all those things, should you choose to read it. I was actually astonished by how much fucking writing is in the game and how deep they go to explain just everything. So the story's there if you want it, but it's not necessary. The game is just fluid and fun and different than the other shooters this year. And it has that acclaim, I think, for a good reason. It's a really, really great game.
Have you watched Danny O'Dwyer's
Not yet.
thing? It's
mostly because I'm afraid it's going to spoil the game for me. So I didn't want to see it.
It's great, man. It's really cool.
Downwell is number 4. As I explained when we were talking, I think, about our top Vita games, because it's on my top Vita game list that we did for PS I Love You. Downwell is one of those games that just beat my ass and just beats my ass over and over again. I'm just not that good at it. And I take pride in being good at games, as we all do, and I like to master a game and feel like I'm getting better. And Downwell is one of those games where I just don't feel like I'm getting that much better, and yet I just keep playing it over and over again. It's a game I actually boot up pretty often. And I've played pretty extensively throughout the year because I have this itch with Downwell, and I want to beat it. And as I was telling Greg, like, the developer's mom was talking about how she beat it on hard mode and stuff like that. And I'm like, I can't even beat the fucking third world normal mode. Like, I don't understand how anyone's beating this game. And I like study these YouTube videos and obsess over them. And like, I'm like, I just can't execute like this. It's so twitchy and so fucking nerve wracking. I'm like, gonna break my Vita in half when I'm playing it. But it speaks to the game's quality and the game's hook that I keep coming back to it. It's just really good. And for people that don't know, it's just a very basic Japanese indie game. You're falling down a well, hence the name. You have gun boots, and the idea is that you're basically trying to build up combos by not landing. And you can land on any platform if you want, but you reset your multiplier. But that's also how you reset your bullets. So you have to balance out this thing where, like, if you bounce on an enemy, it refills your bullets. But if you're just jumping around with your boots, eventually you have to land. And so you either land on an enemy or you land on a platform. And the enemies are different colors, so like you can't even land on certain enemies. And by the end of the game, you can't land on anything. And there's a degree of randomness to it too, where you have 3 items that you can select at the beginning of each stage, and they're just randomized, and you just can create this great arsenal of weapons and items and techniques and all that, or you get really fucked on your playthrough and you start again. But I think Downwell is worth the look, and I do think, and I know it sounds like a Vita fanboy thing, whatever, it's best on Vita. I played it on PS4, it's just not the same. The screen's too big. I Am Setsuna is number 5. I Am Setsuna is one of those creep games where the more I think about it, it creeps into my mind, the more I love it. To the point where I liked it. I always liked it. And as I platinumed it, and as I was playing it more, the more I played it, the more I liked it. And then when I was done with it, I was sad it was over. And I hadn't had that feeling in a long time. That feeling I had a lot as a kid, as a young role-playing game fan, where most of what I played from age, I would say, well, from the time I really got my PS1 until, so Final Fantasy 7-ish, so like 97 until 2001 or 2002, that's pretty much all I played was Japanese role-playing games. And you always got that sinking feeling when you beat a game that you liked because you invested so much time in it. It wasn't like a 5 or a 10-hour investment. I played I Am Setsuna for probably 50 hours, and some of these games I played for 100 hours. I remember being really sad when Wild Arms 2 was over, for instance, because I'd invested so much time and there's just nothing left. And that's the way I felt about I Am Setsuna. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, this game is underrated and to a criminal degree. And I think Square Enix deserves a lot of credit. We talk about their Vita support and all these kinds of things. They deserve a lot of credit too for funding this game as well as funding those DS class-based games. What were they? Bravely Default. Yeah. Because they're listening to some degree, and they're like, well, you want this. And Tokyo RPG Factory is a Square studio that was made specifically to make these kinds of games. And they took a financial loss on the game, although I think they probably remade it now that they released it in the West. Setsuna, I think, is Japanese for sorrow. And so the entire game is super fucking sad. And you don't often find that in role-playing games. There's sad elements of role-playing games. Wild Arms has sad elements with Rudy, and Final Fantasy VI has sad elements with Edgar and Sabin and their brotherhood and Cyan's dead wife and all that kind of stuff. But this game is just fucking sad. And the music's sad. It's all piano. And it's about how this girl is going to go kill herself for the sake of humanity and how these people are guiding her on her path to ultimately sacrifice herself.
Sounds like Final Fantasy X's plot.
A lot of people were making those comparisons. And to me, is
there a blitzball in this?
There's no blitzball in it. What I think is so cool is that it's just pure old school role playing, and that combat. And I don't think it's necessary for every game or even many games today, because I think they would turn a lot of people off. But it was a game that was necessary at the time. And I hate to say it, but like the more I play games in the role playing genre that aren't like I Am Setsuna, the more I miss that game. I just think it's a really, really great game, and the platinum was totally fun to get, and I really enjoyed the hell out of it. Inside is the next game, number 6. Inside's my favorite game of the year. I think Inside delivers without being pretentious. And I think because a game like that oozes pretension. I think that Limbo oozes pretension. I think games, Jonathan Blow games ooze pretension. There's nothing really wrong with that. And Playdead's games have an air of pretension. But what I was surprised about with Inside was it actually was not pretentious at all. It was just very deliberate. The way the game was made was really quite brilliant. And when you consider how long Playdead took to make the game and how short it is, it's 90 minutes long, 2 hours long at the most. I was really enamored with how deliberate everything was in the game, how every frame and every second of it meant something, and there was no waste, and there was nothing added that didn't need to be there. And I like how ambiguous the story is. And what I love about it the most is that some people think it falls apart at the end a little bit. And I understand why people think that. But what I thought was most fun was that when it was over, I was like, I have no idea what the fuck that was about. And it doesn't matter. And I've read fan theories and have my own theories about what that place was and what was going on with the boy there and stuff like that. But it doesn't matter. And they're never going to say. And you'll never know. And I think it's cool. It's satisfying. It's similar to Journey, where I'm like, I think Journey is about death. And I think that's pretty obvious. But it's also about other things, and you don't really know. And it's not really important because it's some sort of like Inside was like a spiritual journey for me, and I really, really loved it. That's a must-play game, and I think I'm surprised that a lot of people don't talk about it. You don't hear much about it, like you hear about Limbo. I bet you this game sold significantly less than Limbo, and I think that's a shame.
I think it's a time and place thing, though. Really, with
Limbo was
Limbo being like the kind of headline. like
Look at this indie
DLC
game.
title, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's like you can download this and then it like took
And
off.
then not only that, it did brew and cook for a long time before it went everywhere.
Yep.
Ratchet and Clank is number 7. Ratchet was, I think, the biggest surprise of the year, and I thought it was going to be good. I mean, Insomniac makes good Ratchet games. I mean, they've only had a couple of misses when they got away from the formula, specifically with, they got back to it with Into the Nexus, but like Full Frontal Assault and all these, All for One. It's like, Jesus Christ. And I respect that they were trying different things. It just didn't work out. Ratchet is a remake of the original, like you said, but it has all these new elements. And I think the original Ratchet and Clank is a fantastic game. And I think what I liked the most about it was that they fixed the tone of the game. As I've said many times before, Ratchet and Clank's adversarial relationship in the first game was really unfortunate. And I don't think they understood quite what made that pair work and why people cared about them. Like, Ratchet hates Clank, and Clank hates Ratchet in the first game. Like, they're not friendly to each other, and it's awkward. It reminds me, in a weird way, a little bit of Breaking Bad, where I'm like, the reason I don't like this show is because, like, even the protagonists don't like each other. Like, it's just like, there's no one to root for. There's no relationship there worth a damn. Like, why do I care about any of the things that are happening? And they fixed it. And suddenly they're friends, and that fixes the game. And so it's beautiful, and it plays well, and it's from another era, but I think it plays well. I think you're going to get another one. And I think Sony was probably astonished by how well it sold. And we have to remember that it was made to coincide with the movie, and the movie ended up being the inconsequential part of the equation, not the game. And I think that's a great sign that, first of all, not everything needs to be a movie. And second of all, $40 price point for a AAA Ratchet and Clank game from Insomniac. It's one of the best games of the year. And I mean, I don't think it's even close. Like, I think that Ratchet is clearly special, and you should play it. Number 8 is Severed. Best Vita game of the year, I think, by a mile. Drinkbox Studios. What can you say about those guys? They've supported Vita since the very beginning. This was a Vita exclusive. It's on other things now, but they made this game for Vita, and they knew they were releasing it into a void. Vita is dying, but there's a hardcore audience there that bought the game and has supported it. And what I like about it the most is that it's a first-person dungeon crawler akin to a lot of the games that are already on the platform. It's a breeding ground for these kinds of games. Actually, there's plenty of first-person dungeon crawlers on there if you want them, especially from NIS. And this game took a different tack. It's not very hardcore. It's not very long. It's about using touch controls to sever enemies' body parts and use them to create new goods and new items, new weapons and upgrades. And it can be beaten in like 6 or 7 hours. And I think it was exactly the experience that I wanted. I was so excited that it was good. I know that they were a little worried about it, that they didn't really stumble on the special sauce for a little while, and they delayed it and tried to figure out what the game was and stuff like that. And they did themselves proud. And it's on Wii U and other platforms now, iOS. But I think that it's really Vita's best game of the year by a mile, and deserves a lot of credit. And I think it's a lot of fun. And it's a great game to just spend a day or a night with, or a couple of nights with, and you'll be done with it, and you can platinum it. Number 9 is Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4 is different than Setsuna, where the more I think about it, the more I actually don't like it. But that's relative, because I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a great game. But like, I thought it was like this. When I played it and when I finished it, I was like, this is I really took my time with it and tried to savor it. And I was like, this is a phenomenal, just epic game. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but there's a lot of problems with it too. And Inside quickly went ahead of it and on my list. And I think that we were talking about tone earlier with some of these games. I think Uncharted 4 missed some of the tone of what made the old Uncharted 3 games good. And I also think that its focus on ancillary characters was a mistake, because this is the last time we're going to see them. And so they missed a lot of chances to give us a little bit more of what we wanted. And they're going to try to rectify that with the DLC with Chloe a little bit. But Nadine's in it. It's like, I don't give a fuck about Nadine, and like, I don't care about Drake's brother. We never even heard of this person. Like, where does he come from and why is he so important to the story now? Like, there's certain things where I'm like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. And as a fan, I've been a fan of Uncharted since the beginning, just like all of us at the table. I didn't at the end, after thinking about it and marinating on it for a little while, I wasn't as satisfied as I wanted to be with the way it ended. However, the epilogue is super interesting in the game, and I think clearly is going to continue in a different way in the future. I think they'll put it on ice for now, and I think it'll be back in ways that I think people that beat the game will understand. But Uncharted 4 is a technical masterpiece. I like that it didn't have much gunplay in it. It's about adventuring. It's about being Drake. Drake's like a fucking mass murderer in these games. It's nice to scale that back and ground it a little bit more. But I also like that The Last of Us didn't seep into the game at all. In terms of like crafting or anything like that. I remember saying before the game came out, if there's any upgrade systems or crafting, I'm gonna be so fucking mad. And they did. They stayed away and they made it pure pulp, which is exactly what it's all about. And so Uncharted 4 is certainly one of the great games of the year. And the final game is Virginia on my list. And I think Virginia is a really special walking simulator, as we say. But I don't mean that pejoratively. It's about this FBI agent, this black female FBI agent. And I don't want to say too much more than that because it'll spoil it because it's a really short game. I platinumed it. I played it twice. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's just, what's cool about it is the art style is a little obtuse and a little weird, but also there's not a word spoken in the game. There's no words on the screen. There's no words said. It's all through observation of scenes and facial expressions and all those kinds of things that you get what the game means. And even then, there's a lot of ambiguity and there are a lot of theories about what the game really means and what's going on in the game. And I think that Virginia, out of all those games on the list, is the one that the least amount of people played. And I really think people owe it to themselves to play it. I think it's a stupendous game and super emotional, super strange, plays with your emotions and tightens your stomach a little bit with some of the things that are going on and the situations that she finds herself in. And there's a place for these, in an era when we emphasize gameplay, which is king in most games, and we emphasize length of game, bless you, which I think is really important in some cases. I love that there's experiences out there still like 3/4 Home or Gone Home or one of these games where it's like, this is 90 minutes and this is what the game is and there's really nothing else to do. And I think that's totally appropriate for some games. And Virginia, I think, was the cream of the crop in that respect this year. So that's my list of 10 games.